Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we are going to talk a bit on Purdah 1 by Imtiaz Dharker. So in this video we are going to talk a bit on short biography of Imtiaz Dharker and analysis of the poem. So let's get started. Imtiaz Dharker was born in Lahore, Punjab, Pakistan. She grew up in Glasgow where her family moved when she was less than 1 year old. She was married to Simon Powell, the founder of the organization Poetry Live, who died in October 2009 after surviving 11 years with cancer. With Poetry Live, she reads to over 25,000 students a year, traveling across the country with poets including Carol Ann Duffy, Simon Amte, John Aggard, Kellyan Clark, Diljit Nagra, Grace Nicholas, Owen Shears, Jackie Kay, and Maura Dolle. Dharker divides her time between London, Wales, and Mumbai. She says she describes herself as a Scottish Muslim Calvinist, adopted by India and married into Wales. Her daughter Aisha Dharker, whose father is Anil Dharker, and Anil Dharker is an Indian, is an actress in international films, on television and on stage. A British poet, artist and video filmmaker. So Imtiaz Dharker is a British poet, artist and video filmmaker. She has won the Queen's Gold Medal for her English poetry and was appointed Chancellor of Newcastle University from January 2020. In 2019, she was considered for the position of Poet Laureate following the tenure of Carol Ann Duffy, but withdrew herself from continuation in order, as she stated, to maintain focus on her writing. I had to waive the privacy I need to write poems against the demands of a public role. The poem on, like said Dharker, for many Dharker is seen as one of Britain's most inspirational contemporary poets. She was elected a Fellow of the Royal Society of Literature in 2011. In the same year, she received the Comrade Award from the Society of Authors in 2016. She received an honorary doctorate from SOAS University of London. So now we will see the analysis of the poem. And before moving on to analysis, Purdah 1 was written in 1989 and it is written in free verse. Not too much figures of speech, but simile and metaphor are used in this poem. So Purdah 1 is a discreet protest and an eloquent criticism of the tradition of the veil, which we also call Purdah, and strictly sanctioned and imposed on Muslim women. Our attention is focused on the turning point in the life of a Muslim girl when she suddenly becomes conscious of her sexual growth. Others are perhaps more conscious. Dharker is galvanized to make the veil, means to make the Purdah the symbol of orthodox imposition on a woman to hide what's shameful or outrageous, a preoccupying theme, and in her poems, the onset puberty signifies the end of an innocent world for a woman. She was fascinated by the outward symbols of Islam, means Imtiaz Dharker was fascinated by the outward symbols of Islam because she was first Muslim, then she moved from Pakistan to London, and the Rozas, the reading of the Quran, and she accepted these unquestioningly. She wanted to belong quite strongly. Her early poems, treasured of by incidents in her own life, reveal this. She writes what? That it is the women who know you can take in the invader, like time after time, and still be whole, whether they enter with loaded guns or kind words, you are quite intact. The fact is, each one has a borderline. that can't be erased. Every borderline becomes a battlefield and every night an act of faith. Yet the triumph of Purdah is not in the clinical precision of the poems alone, but in her ability to recharacterize feminism. For Imtiaz Dharker is a feminist, but of the gentler variety. Consequently, the Purdah, which has often been used in Islamic societies as the ultimate symbol of paternalistic oppression of women, gets a life of its own. It is a state of mind, but she feels it applies evenly to men and women. So, one poem, in fact, begins with one day they said she was old enough to learn some shame. She found it came quite naturally. She feels strongly about Khandani Izzat, and it's the word of Urdu. So in English we say this, that family honor, and says for centuries women have been carrying the burden of accumulated shame. Imtiaz Dharker is critically one of the traditional male politico-religious hierarchy, but it is by keeping her tone clinical and precise that she manages to plumb deep. But for many critics, they have different concepts about Purdah, like for Helen Watson and for many other feminists, hijab is not always a woman's oppression. In fact, hijab is always not a woman's impression. It's her wish that whether she wants to do hijab or not. So it can also be a deliberate act of choice. Instead of stripping women of their individual's identity, it can signify an assertion of their Islamic heritage. It can thus be seen as not anti-feminist, but feminism in reverse. So everyone has different concept about Purdah, but it doesn't mean that Muslims impose Purdah on their women by forcefully. No, it's their wish whether they want to do Purdah. So this was all about today's. I hope this video has been helpful for you. See you in the next video. Take care of yourself.